So originally, back when Pokemon was actually getting localized outside of Japan, they decided to show off some of the Pokemon to the U.S. Market for people like Game Freak and all that, and Nintendo of America. And then they started re-proposing some of the ideas that they'd rather turn Pikachu into a giant electrical tiger with huge breasts were some of the ideas. And they couldn't believe some of the ideas they were getting in return. And it's ironic because, you know, well, actually, why it's funny is because they would turn around and say, well, how is that supposed to be Pikachu? And they say, well, look, there's its tail. And I'm just sitting there thinking, like, you know, that wouldn't surprise me, but at the same time, it's kind of funny that out of all the Pokemon they do that to, it'd be Pikachu. I mean, and speaking of Pikachu, I think I figured out why they chose Pikachu as the mascot. Because when Ken Sugimori, I believe, was the one that was creating the Pokemon, they decided that they needed more cute Pokemon, so they brought in some of the female staff, and then that would later off be one of the people that created Pikachu. And that was one of the Pokemon that, because Clefairy was actually created by Ken Sugimori, I believe. And if I got it right, Clefairy was actually supposed to be the first official mascot, well, aside from Rhydon, if you want to go back to Kapu Monsters. I think Rhydon still would have probably been a really good candidate too. But they probably wanted to make Pokemon. They didn't want to make it just like any other RPG. They wanted to make it like, or any other JRPG. They wanted to make it like distinctive in its own way. So they took Pikachu, they turned it into something cute, because you know how people in Japan feel about their animals. So they decided to do that, and that's what we got. Pikachu was obviously probably a lot more adorable than that, but I think that's why they also scrapped Gorochu, and then they decided to turn Pichu into, because they wanted Pikachu and Raichu and all of them to be like not like too much different, like, but they were still stronger nonetheless, depending on how far in the evolutionary line they got and how well their stats were. But basically, if I'm being completely honest, I do think it makes a lot of sense to say that now, like why Pokemon really went through as much history as it did, as big of a series as it is too, and why they did what they did with it. So, but still does make me think though, if Pikachu was originally, it does make me wonder what other Pokemon they were proposing at the time. What other Pokemon they could have slowly turned into something else. Because then I think that kind of also explains why they kind of gave into, like why some Pokemon are more feminine. Like, you know, because later on they would kind of come back to some of the ideas, like Gardevoir does look like more of a female than it does a male, or Lopunny, for example, in Gen 4. And the only way to evolve it was to get it at max friendship level, and then it would learn return when it evolved. So, you know, I wouldn't be surprised that I'm sort of seeing a pattern here why Game Freak like decided to change some things, and then they came back to some of these ideas later on, but under different circumstances, let's say. And I still think they did a really good job. I'm not saying anything wrong. I think it's pretty cool. I mean, you gotta stand by your imagination. If you don't, then, you know, they're not your ideas now, are they? But anyways, so yeah, they scrapped the concept of Pikachu being like that because they figured, well, you know, Pikachu is probably fine the way it is, right? The one idea that they decided to keep was Pikachu's original design. Pikachu eventually went over some changes, but it still stayed to be the same height, and it didn't look as fat in the original, but they changed the artwork over time and eventually turned it into what we know today. So definitely different. So I would say, yeah, you find Pikachu in the Viridian Forest. You can still find Pikachu in the power plant, just kind of running around somewhere. Maybe even later levels too, because, you know, you could find Raichu in like the Cerulean Cave, like in the final versions. In the beta version, it was a lot different. You could find Gorochu in the Elite Four, because that was when they actually had another dungeon, believe it or not. That was actually even more strange, but I'll have to run through that again. I want to kind of give some more commentary on that, what I think and what could be expected and listed from it. So we'll see. But anyways, right now I'm still trying to go through some of this, some of Dr. Lava's tweets and all that, and he's because he always found some of this stuff like that I've never seen anybody else talk about or not too many people talk about. So it's just we need to get it out there, so more people know it exists one way or another somehow. So that'll be interesting. So yeah, so again, subscribe if you are not already, and if you have any other requests or questions, please let me know. I'll be glad to cover them any way I can.